Hello and welcome to this Altered Carbon Season 1 review. This season was released on Netflix on the 2nd of Feb 2018. The show was based on a book by Richard Morgan. So going forward, this review will contain spoilers. Just to advise you, I've never read the book that the show has been based on, so I took this season with no prior character knowledge or book references. Initially, at the end of the first episode, I was really happy, filled with excitement. I don't think it jumped out at me with action, but I was more impressed with this show around the amazing CG, which created a very dirty, smutty but vibrant cyberpunk world with a real paradoxical opposing area. So where the upper class, the gods live if you will, so the aesthetic there was very clean, the historic architecture, they worked very well with the opposing visual design. The scene when the flying vehicle was going through the clouds, introducing that world, and it kind of broke through the clouds, it was spectacular. The story at the initial part, on face value, was very simplistic. Kovac was captured, killed, re-sleeved at the request of Bancroft to solve his murder. As the episodes progressed, we got more information, more plot twists revealed around his history. But what I really did enjoy about the first few episodes is the plethora of suggestions, hints, and snippets of so many stories and plot lines that we could have ventured down and followed. Just to give you some examples of those plot lines I mentioned there, so Kovac's history, the Envoy's training, the Envoys themselves, Kovac's home planet, his sister, his partner, the Songspire tree, the Raven Hotel and the story of the AI and the AI's abilities, and also how the AI has evolved over time. The state of the police, Ortega's story, the book that Bancroft gives Kovac, the re-sleeving process. I mean, just for an example of the re-sleeving process, we see the hideous story of the girl re-sleeved into the old lady's body at the very start. Their story alone was traumatizing, but it was an indication of a really disturbing world. The overall intriguing technology as well. So many different facets there. But the more the season progressed, the more of those interesting story arcs got ignored or quickly filled up with uninteresting superficial content. When they could have really run away with so many of those concepts, I think that is what would have made for an amazing in-depth TV show. So on top of that, whilst the season progressed, the story of our main antagonist seemed to become muddled and sluggish. Some of the new characters introduced I found really lowered the quality of the show. They didn't seem to really fit into this world, possibly a casting issue. A few characters also started delivering very cringeworthy one-liners as well. Probably the start of the main downfall of the story was the introduction of Kovac's sister, Raylene. With the combination of the episode Nora Inu, which followed her reveal, I found that to be very convoluted and prolonged story of the introduction of the Envoys, which ultimately felt very empty and uninspired. After that episode, we had the introduction of Raylene's betrayal. I thought the show lost all momentum and mystery at that point. It really made the rest of the episodes become laborsome to watch. The end of the season left on a good point. If they want to continue with season 2, they have a lot of content there, and we did get a lot of closure around the main characters. This is a very strange beast to review, as it did have some fantastic concepts, and some of the delivery initially was very good. Some of the very good points with the show was the intriguing technology. The CG alone was phenomenal. A lot of the actors did a fantastic job as well. A few of my favourite characters would be Chris Connor. I think it did a really good job as Poe, the AI of the Raven. I thought he did a really good job on that one. The characters Christina Ortega and her mother, I thought they both came across very well. I did like those characters. Some people have mentioned they think Ortega was very cliche, but I think it worked well for her. And I did think that Mr. Luiying was a very good villain initially. He was very ominous in the background when you saw him. So I thought he was quite good. So an amazing start to this TV show. The premise, the world, the CG. It was all looking so good. Then I just don't know what happened. Another telling sign that this show didn't have me hooked. It took me 9 days to finish it. I was averaging 1 episode a night. With Mindhunter and Dark and season 1 of Stranger Things, for example, those binge-worthy Netflix shows, I was doing 2 or 3 of those a night. I also often seemed to struggle with the diction within Altered Carbon. So I started to struggle with the dialogue. I'm not sure if that was the audio mix I was listening to, or if it was the actors' vocals being unclear. But that also kind of took me out of the environment sometimes. I'd have to stop and rewind it sometimes. I didn't feel a great desire to keep watching this season ultimately. Are my standards now too high, perhaps? Would I recommend this show to a sci-fi buff, or a Blade Runner fan, or a crime TV show fan? I'd say try the first few episodes, see if you like it. Am I hanging out for season 2? No, not really. So trying to define this show in one sentence is a bit tricky, but let's give it a go. So initially, I enjoyed the first few episodes. It had an amazing potential, but it lost its way and seems like a wasted opportunity. So an analogy here. It was an amazing looking car that looked to have great potential. A potential to take you on a ride of your dreams to unknown destinations. But you jump in the car and only to find that someone has forgotten to install the engine and you are stuck in the driveway going nowhere. So that is, for me, is Altered Carbon. Something which looks like it could have been amazing, ultimately goes nowhere. I may do another video on this show to break it down more, some explanations and some things you may have missed, because once again it does have some fantastic content within this show. But for now, I shall leave this review here. I hope you enjoyed this review. As always, leave your feedback below. We all perceive entertainment very differently. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this TV show and how you think it went. But until next time, this is Mesh, and I shall see you later.